Farage Show.
Good morning, everybody. Well, of course, Brexit is dominating absolutely everything, with 9 days to go until Parliament gets to vote on Theresa May's deal. And Liam Fox today, Michael Gove yesterday, urging people in Parliament to vote for this deal so that at least we leave the European Union on March the 29th. But many others saying, hey, hang on a second, we may be leaving, but it's leaving in name only, and in fact we'd find ourselves completely and utterly trapped, in some ways be worse than where we are now. So we'll debate that between 10 and 11. Are you scared? If this all leads to a no-deal Brexit, is it something to be afraid of? And at 11 o'clock, we'll debate something that I hoped I would never have to debate, and that is the state of UKIP. A big march planned for next Sunday in the name of UKIP, with Tommy Robinson as one of the speakers, and a photograph that emerged from Friday of a planning meeting with people in the room with some very serious criminal convictions and BNP links. And I'll be asking at 11, I want your advice. Do you think I should stay in UKIP, or has my time with the party finished? I'd love to hear from you at 11. The front page of the Sunday Times today has a leaked letter coming from the Attorney General, Geoffrey Cox. And the letter talks about the protocol known as the backstop. And in the letter it says, the protocol could endure indefinitely. That means forever. And senior ministers are telling the Sunday Times that the Prime Minister is refusing to publish this legal advice because it contains this really stark passage and means we could be trapped in it forever. So Labour are getting together with the SNP, the Greens, everybody, trying to force the government to publish the legal advice. The government don't have to publish the legal advice, but I would have thought, given the import and magnitude of this vote, that we ought to know the truth. What is clear is that with every day that goes by, and we saw Sam Gyimah yesterday standing down as a minister, 10 ministers have now stood down since we've seen this deal. It begins to look, although, the government is going to lose by a very large margin indeed. And unless Parliament unpicks previous legislation, or unless the government puts forward new legislation, we look to be now perhaps on course to leaving on March the 29th without a deal with the European Union, but a negotiated WTO deal. David Davis today in the Sunday Times says this is not crashing out, this is escaping the EU's dead hand. And Davis makes it clear that this is not absolutely the ideal situation, but it's not something to be afraid of. Daniel Hannan makes a very similar point in the Sunday Telegraph. And I have to say, for 25 years, I've always wanted a simple free trade agreement with the EU, but this government didn't even ask for it. So I'm going to ask you, are you scared of us leaving the European Union? Do you believe these terrible projections of apocalypse, of goods not getting into the country, of Kent being a lorry park, of perhaps, as Mark Carney suggested, the economy taking a big downward dive? Or is this all scaremongering that we've heard before? Would leaving with no deal not just save us between 40 and 60 billion, but maybe it's now the only way that referendum result can be delivered? Is it something to be scared of? Well, lots of programmes this morning on radio and television where you've got politicians talking to journalists, but mostly it's journalists talking to journalists. This is where the public get to have their say. Kicking off with Tony from Chichester. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning. The problem we've got is a Prime Minister who keeps contradicting herself. First of all, when she became Prime Minister, she said she wouldn't hold an election. Then she did. She has said countless times there won't be a second referendum, but don't hold your breath. Yep. And she also said no deal is better than a bad deal. So why won't she offer a no deal? We'd be free from the shackles of the European Union completely. We can do trade deals without having our arms tied behind our back. Perhaps I'm being a little bit naive here, Nigel. You can probably correct me. If we were to sort of just leave and just say we're going to carry on trading with you in the same way with no tariffs, they would have to do the same with us, surely. We've got an 80 billion trade deficit with us. They've got to do a trade deal with us.
I think the argument, Tony, David Davis is making is there's still time to do a free trade deal. But I have to say, Tony, time is actually running out. Even though in regulatory terms we're on the same level as them. But what David Davis's point is, the more that you prepare for a no deal, the more likely it is that they come to us ahead of March the 29th and say, hey guys, let's do something.
Exactly.
And I think from a negotiating point of view, that is what you have to do. I mean, look at what Trump's done overnight with China. You know, he threatens.
And they back down.
And they've backed down, and they're going to start buying more American agricultural goods. And that's the way to play this. But if it did come to it, Tony, you know, if the European Commission decided, no, we are going to cut off our nose to spite our face, the Davis argument is there's actually nothing to fear. Yep, tariffs will be charged on our goods. We charge tariffs on their goods. In most cases, those tariffs are between 3 and 4%. I mean, it's less than the monthly currency fluctuation.
Yes, that's right. But why can't we just carry on a free trade deal with them?
Well, because we haven't asked for it, Tony. You know what?
Exactly.
You know what the Prime Minister wanted to do was to keep us wrapped inside the European Union and basically supporting its objectives. I mean, Tony, I'll read this to you. I was flabbergasted on Friday. Steve Barclay, who of course is the new Brexit secretary that nobody'd ever heard of, he tweeted this on Friday. He said, under the Brexit deal, we have agreed to strike an ambitious, flexible and scalable relationship that allows us to combine resources worldwide for maximum impact. So the Brexit secretary is saying we're going to help the European Union be a global player. This is so far away from what we voted, Steve, but it makes you understand, if that's what the British government wants, they never went for a simple free trade deal.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I say that's my point. That in the first place, that she's contradicting herself when she said herself, "No deal is better than a bad deal."
Well, she didn't mean it.
And the European Union want to keep us in because they want our money, and they're doing all they can to either keep us in or force a second referendum and hope that we vote to stay in. And until
Tony,
it's just bullying. It's just bullying.
No deal is better than a bad deal was a phrase that I coined with a group of economists 2 weeks before the referendum. The difference is, Tony, she never meant it. Thank you. Off to Chesterfield to speak to Godfrey, a new caller to this show. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Pleased to speak to you. Two quick things, very quickly.
Yep.
No deal is better than a bad deal, for sure. I've seen lots of paperwork recently and heard a lot on the road about the two surveys that were done by government about stopping in and leaving. Now, just very quickly, I'm choosing my words here, I think, personally, that a Labour government would be the very worst of all the options, and I don't know what the scenario is if we go back in. Everyone's saying how much it's going to cost, but those two options to me seem extremely expensive, like staying in or a Labour government.
Well,
they sound very clever, in my opinion.
Well, a Labour government would only happen, Godfrey, if there was a general election. I mean, it's rumoured this morning that if Mrs May can't get her deal through, she puts it back to the House of Commons, threatening Tory MPs, saying, unless you vote for it this time, I'll call a general election. And that's how Labour could get in. Godfrey, I consider that to be pretty unlikely.
Good.
The question is, if her deal doesn't get voted through, what happens? Do we leave on WTO terms, or somehow does Parliament force a second referendum upon us?
No second referendum. If there's another referendum, I shall still vote leave, and then after that, I'll never vote again.
Yeah,
well, I can't believe them.
I think there's a few people in that position. So, Godfrey, you don't want a second referendum, you don't want Labour, but are you scared of, and the phrase that's being used by everybody is crashing out? Does that scare you?
Not really, no. I must admit, though, I'm a lot older than perhaps a lot of your callers, and therefore it probably will affect me a lot less, and that's only fair. But no, not crashing out doesn't really frighten me at all.
Okay.
I believe it's a big scare tactic.
It's an enormous scare tactic. The question is it true? Godfrey, thank you. You're listening to the Sunday edition of Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 10:15.
This is LBC.
Muscular pain can last all day and night.
Ouch.
And Eurofen's new pain relief can do the same. Introducing the UK's only clinically proven 24-hour ibuprofen patch. It delivers ibuprofen directly to the site of pain for all day and all night pain relief. Nurofen Joint and Muscular Pain Relief Medicated Plaster contains ibuprofen for short-term pain relief of muscle strains and sprains close to the joint of upper or lower limb. Always read the label.
Have you heard of MyWhip, the new London private hire app for PHV drivers?
Nah, but they sound like another Uber company.
Not quite. For a start, they only take 15% commission, and that's for life. Means they take less, so you earn more.
Then they must be like Viavan, who operate in only Zone 1 and 2.
Nah, they're based in London and operate throughout Greater London.
Where do we sign up?
Text WHIP to 66777 or visit miwhip.com. Download the iOS or Android app, upload your documents and get on board with MyWhip.
Alicia, give me some ideas for men's gifts.
The most popular men's gifts are beard trimmers, beard oil, beard mist, beard wax, beard rollers, beard balm, an e-beard, beard spray, beard dye.
For those that don't do the expected, the Jaguar F-Pace, a performance SUV with the DNA of a sports car. Jaguar, a breed apart.
There's nothing without risk.
From the author of The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel,
I've come to paint a portrait.
Alicia Vikander, Dane DeHaan.
You two really think you'll carry this off?
Jack O'Connell, Holiday Granger.
I'll tell your husband what you've been up to.
Tom Hollander, Christoph Waltz, and Judi Dench.
You've been busy. You've not been painting.
No offence.
Tulip Fever, in cinemas December 7th.
I'm from a small town in Lancashire, and growing up, I just always wanted to move away. So school made me feel a bit trapped. But then my geography teacher took us rambling. So I'm there, walking through nature, and he begins explaining our home to us, why it's special and why we're lucky. He showed me the trails my grandfather took, and also his grandfather before him. That teacher taught geography, but really, he was teaching me who I was.
Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. Search Get Into Teaching.
I'm Tom Parker Bowles, award-winning food critic and writer. In this Sunday's Mail on Sunday, I've teamed up with wine expert Ollie Smith to present our definitive list of the 100 best pubs in Britain. Roaring fires, perfect pints, wonderful wines and mouth-watering menus. Not to mention oodles of traditional British charm. Find out if your favourite pub's on our list. Read our definitive guide to Britain's 100 best pubs only in this Sunday's Mail on Sunday.
Norman Baker, you did on Christmas morning show true courage, stepping forward to peel in the face of overwhelming sprouts, battling that vegetable mountain with nothing more than a tiny little knife. So we say, someone deserves a bells.
For the facts, visit drinkaware.co.uk.
It's Super Weekend at Lidl with up to 50% off selected products. Get a bottle of Argentinian Torontes Mendoza, only $3.49. A bag of soft-pitted apricots, just 49p. And a pack of deluxe super granola, only 99p. Lidl, big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability. Selected stores excludes NI in Scotland.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Well, political tensions in London, but even bigger tensions in Paris. The third weekend of rioting in the Champs-Élysées and elsewhere. We will, in a few minutes, go to Paris and find out what the state of play is. Now, what is really interesting about this is not only is Mrs May's deal hugely unpopular in Parliament. Yes, I know that Liam Fox and Michael Gove are saying we must support it, but actually she looks like she will lose in 9 days' time pretty heavily. But out in the country, the deal has almost got no support at all. Now, opinion polling, of course, is all over the place, and we learnt back in 2016 not to take it too literally. The People's Vote put out a poll today saying support for remaining in is as high as 55%. But a very interesting piece of work by Delta Poll that came out the other day asked people, did they back no deal over Mrs May's deal? And by 52 to 48, they did. So what seems to me is happening is that leavers are saying, can we please just leave? Or to use the Prime Minister's phrase, can we please just get on with it? Prime Minister, people do want to get on with it, but not in the shape of the withdrawal agreement that you've signed up to. I sense that Leave opinion is hardening significantly. They're saying, let's just do it. And I'm beginning to think that a negotiated WTO withdrawal, I'm beginning to think, is the only possible way on March 29th of delivering what people have voted for. The question is, should we be scared of it? And folks, if you are scared of it, if you're really genuinely worried about what you've heard, you may never have called LBC before, but it's 0345 6060 973. You can text your opinions to 84850. You can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And, of course, Facebookers, you can comment there too. I'm off to Birmingham to speak to Christopher, a new caller to this show. Christopher, we had the Governor of the Bank of England this week, and he was a bit misquoted because he was putting a worst-case scenario. But, a lot of the establishment are telling us, Christopher, that a WTO exit would be really bad for us.
Oh, good morning, Nigel.
Good morning.
Thank you for taking the call. Nice speaking to you. It's absolutely ridiculous. A WTO is the best possible thing that we could do. All this scaremongering, the only people that should be scared is the EU, because they won't get the 39 billion and they won't have a shackle to them. We are a proud nation. We stand there, we have got everything this country has. We have great people, we have all sorts of things going for us. We should just walk out and get on with it. Head teacher May should step down. She is a disgrace. Half of the Tory party are a disgrace. I have been a Conservative voter all my life. My partner is, my family have been, and we will not be voting Conservative again. I haven't got a clue who we can vote for because they're all dire.
Do you know, Christopher, the first person I met this morning, very early, at a petrol station, bloke got out of the car, hello, Mr Farage, he said, I've been Conservative all my life. He said, I don't think I can vote for them ever again. There are millions of you out there, Christopher. Millions of you. And somehow, the Tory MPs have kept her in position.
Well, we feel disenfranchised, Nigel, because this is not what we voted for. We voted to leave. We had a referendum. If the boot had been on the other foot and it was Remain, we'd have all respected that. But it wasn't. And they're not respecting the vote that the British people had.
No, I'm afraid that
we should just leave.
Right. OK, Christopher, thank you. Thank you. Christopher says just leave, do it on WTO, and it is a view amongst leavers that is gaining ground. He talked there about the EU being scared. Well, of course, the car manufacturers, the wine producers, will be very worried of us leaving on WTO because we could start to buy wine a lot more cheaply from New Zealand and Australia and places like that. And he also mentioned, Christopher, the 39 billion, but actually with the extension of the transition, that's looking a bit more like 60 billion, maybe more. But let me tell you what they're really scared of. The one thing the European Union are terrified of is us becoming competitive. And all the economic modelling that you see from the Treasury, from the Bank of England, saying we'd be that much worse off, is based on the fact that we'd move to that deal and nothing else would change. Everything would stay the same, which of course is absolute rubbish. We would be able to reduce food costs coming into this country from around the rest of the world. And we'd be able, setting our own laws, to become more competitive, if you like, to start undercutting our European competitors. It's the one thing Mr Barnier tried his hardest to do. Don't let us leave the customs union and the rule book, and it's the one thing Mrs May has given in to. James is a new caller from Gravesend. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Nigel. First off, I suppose I just have to say I'm not afraid of a no deal, and I will turn to that in a bit, but I'm just really surprised that the EU and the government, Theresa May, the Prime Minister, is continuing with this scare tactic, the fear-mongering, Project Fear 2.0 it seems now. Like, it doesn't work. It does not work. Like, working-class people, as much as they don't think, like, they sort of understand what goes on. They know 90% of politics is spin and lies and fear. And it does not work. We know what's going on. We know what's going on.
I think, James, I think you're right. I think all the things that Osborne told us in the run-up to that referendum that would happen immediately after a Leave vote, they haven't happened, and we just don't believe them. But James, but that said, James, you know, if we do leave in just a few short months on WTO, that is of concern to businesses because it would be quite a big change, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah, but I sort of echo the comments of your previous caller there. And, you know, we're a country of innovators and inspiring and talented people. And if we can unite behind that idea and fire a rocket up at Parliament's backside...
Well, we did that already.
Yeah.
They just haven't.
I know they just haven't followed through. I know, but I just if we united behind that idea, this only what would seem a total capitulation of Brexit would stop, and we'd just go through with it, and just unite as a country again, because we can't just carry on like this.
I tell you what won't unite the country, and that's a second referendum. Tony Blair said we'll have another referendum, and then when we get the result, we'll unite around that. And I think that's extremely unlikely. James, I thank you for the call. Ali on Facebook says, very sensibly, I think if the legal advice isn't forthcoming in full, then the MP's default position must be to vote against it. And you know what? I think that's right. We understand there are times when governments don't publish all the advice they get. They get advice from all sorts of different people, and they make decisions and they govern. But this is so important. To withhold this, I think, would be outrageous. Norma says it must be a bad deal if Subury is voting against it. Well, yes, it's interesting, isn't it? So you've actually got Remainers voting against it because they hope they can force a second referendum, and you've got Leavers voting against it because they see it as a total capitulation. Just goes to show, Mrs May, if you try and steer a middle path and please everybody, you finish up pleasing no one. Khalid is calling from Edmonton. Good morning to you.
Morning, Nigel. I have to say I'm left bemused by all these people who think no deal is an option. I'm sorry, but it's an absolute nuclear option. There won't be a consensus in Parliament. If Theresa May's deal gets thrown out, which realistically we think it is going to get thrown out, I cannot believe in Parliament there's going to be a consensus for no deal. Do you honestly think there's going to be a consensus for no deal in Parliament?
Khalid, there isn't a consensus in Parliament for us leaving the European Union at all, is the truth of it, but let alone a no deal situation. I mean, no.
But in the absence of a people's vote, Parliament's going to make the decision.
Yes, but...
So what's going to happen? Parliament needs to decide what's going to happen.
But there is an EU Withdrawal Act. It's been debated and voted on in Parliament, and that Act states very explicitly that we are leaving on March the 29th. Now, unless the government wants to introduce a new piece of legislation, we could, even though Parliament's against it, be heading for that option.
That's never going to happen, Nigel. Parliament, Labour, all the opposition parties, even the remaining Conservative parties, will not let a no deal.
Khalid, I have to say, I think, on balance, that you are probably right. I think you're probably right. But getting back to where I started with this, given, Khalid, that 90% of global trade takes place on WTO terms, is it anything to really fear that much?
Okay. If you let me answer it,
I
think
will.
There is because people like James, who's the last caller, I appreciate people would want to get out, and they voted to get out, and they want to get out. So I understand that concept. What they don't understand is that, unfortunately, working class people in this country are going to suffer the most from a no deal.
Why?
Prices going up.
No, Khalid. No, Khalid.
What? You think inflation won't go up on the basis of a no deal?
No, Khalid. On the basis of a no deal, a British government could reduce these huge tariffs we put on 12,500 everyday goods that people go to the supermarkets and buy. We could, only in a no deal situation, make food and underwear and shoes cheaper.
Yeah, but you and I know, Nigel, negotiating a free trade deal doesn't happen overnight. In the short term, there is going to be short-term pain, real short-term pain, as outlined by the Bank of England and the other reports this way. So there's going to be short-term pain. We can discuss whether in the long term whether we can recover.
Well, Kelly, when you move house, there's some short-term pain, isn't there?
But the no dealers, the Jacob Rees-Moggs of this world, and all the people who they will say that short-term pain is a price worth paying. Okay, they will say that pain that they're going to inflict on the country and on working class people in this country.
And what would the pain be? Because, as I say, I mean, prices.
The pain will be a recession, Nigel. The pain we will go into a recession.
I think, Khalid, to be honest with you, there's a recession coming despite Brexit.
And it's going to be even worse.
Why?
If there is, it's going to be. Why? Because there's no frictionless trade, Nigel. We are going to have delays at Dover and at the ports. Prices are going to rise. There's not enough storage space in the country to cover the impact of no deal.
Khalid, there are tens of thousands. Hang on.
That's a fact.
Hang on. There are tens of thousands of containers coming into Southampton and Felixstowe from China every single week on WTO terms. Those containers are off those boats and onto lorries before you can say Jack Robinson. I mean, surely it's not beyond the wit of man to sort this out.
But you think if you honestly think that under a no-deal Brexit that Dover will carry on exactly as it is now without any additional checks by the French or without any additional checks by the EU, if you think that that's going to exactly carry on the same, you're living in cloud cuckoo land.
If the French want to damage, and given the fragile state of French politics and their economy, if they want to damage their exports to this country, let them do it. Khalid, you've made the argument. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's now 10:30 and time for the news with Philip Chrysikos.
Labour says it will start contempt of Parliament proceedings tomorrow if Theresa May doesn't publish her full legal advice on her Brexit deal. As calls grow for a second referendum on Brexit, Ian Blackford, the SNP's leader in Westminster, has told LBC if there is one, his party wants another on Scottish independence. France's government is meeting this morning to discuss a third weekend of protests in Paris. Described as the worst urban riots in the country for years, yesterday more than 400 people were arrested in clashes between demonstrators and police over rising living costs. Donald Trump says his next meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un is likely to happen in January or February. It's as the United States and China have agreed a 90-day ceasefire in their trade dispute, one at the G20 summit in Argentina. LBC weather, patchy rain in the north, bright spells turning to showers elsewhere, a high of 15 degrees.
This is LBC.
I'm Tom Parker Bowles, award-winning food critic and writer. In this Sunday's Mail on Sunday, I've teamed up with wine expert Ollie Smith to present our definitive list of the 100 best pubs in Britain. Roaring fires, perfect pints, wonderful wines and mouth-watering menus. Not to mention oodles of traditional British charm. Find out if your favourite pub's on our list. Read our definitive guide to Britain's 100 best pubs only in this Sunday's Mail on Sunday.
Today in the gym, our popular classes are yoga with Lucy, baby yoga with Ben, hot yoga with Howard, cold yoga with Claire, Ashtanga yoga, Iyengar yoga, or try our brand new class with Lucy and Mark, lukewarm yoga.
For those that don't do popular choices, the Jaguar E-Pace, a compact SUV with sports car DNA. Jaguar, a breed apart.
The best place for sleepyheads is in their bridge bed in bed.
We love our sleep, and even though we use them less, we do still love real shops where we can get real customer service. Get the best of both. Buy your next new bed at Bridge Bedding, an incredible choice of beds and mattresses from the best-known brands in the UK, ensuring a great night's sleep. Bridge Bedding, Leigh-on-Sea, Hornchurch, or online at bridgebedding.com.
The best place for sleepyheads is in their bridge bed in bed.
TfL and the Mayor of London are growing the capital's fleet of electric and hybrid buses. Their significantly lower emissions are helping to bring cleaner air to London. Great news for, well, basically anything that breathes when you think about it. For more information, search TfL Improvements. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
No one would have believed in the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours drew their plans against us.
Jeff Wayne's The War of the Worlds, the audio drama, an Audible original starring Michael Sheen and Taron Egerton. Listen for free as part of your 30-day trial. $7.99 a month after 30 days, renews automatically unless cancelled.
There's nothing without risk.
From the author of The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel,
I've come to paint a portrait.
Alicia Vikander, Dane DeHaan.
You two really think you'll carry this off?
Jack O'Connell, Holiday Granger.
I'll tell your husband what you've been up to.
Tom Hollander, Christoph Waltz, and Judi Dench.
You've been busy. You've not been painting. No offence.
Tulip Fever, in cinemas December 7th.
Right, so I've corrected that typo in the contract on page 3.
Perfect. I've had a read through everything else. It all looks good. Well done.
Great. I'll print a copy and put it on your desk to sign.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Shh, it's starting.
Sorry. Got to go.
Okay. Enjoy the show.
With all the technology your business needs to work flexibly, combined with the UK's largest Wi-Fi network, we'll help everything stay on track no matter where your working day takes you. Find out more at bt.com/LBC. BT. Be there.
Forget winter. Escape to Alat.
Book your November-December holiday to year-round sunny Red Sea and enjoy sensational beaches, amazing water sports and non-stop fun in the sun. Direct low-cost flight and a limited time offer from £42. Book your trip now at travelalat.com.
Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Should we be scared of a no-deal Brexit? Would it lead to chaos? Interestingly, Marie says to me, if we don't get what we voted for, people will take to the streets in scenes similar to that in Paris. Marie, I don't think that's true, but you might get some on either side of an argument out on a street having a scuffle, but I don't think tens of thousands of us, I could be wrong, I don't see tens of thousands of us taking to the streets, but boy, they have been in Paris, and indeed, I saw even in Brussels. Peter Allen, LBC's Paris correspondent, is joining me. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel.
I saw photographs of yesterday in Paris, sort of Victor Hugo-style barricades being erected. What on earth went on yesterday?
It was quite incredible. I've covered many riots in Paris over the years. Yesterday was by far the worst I've ever seen. A lot of people I was speaking to saying there's been nothing like it since May 1968, the famous spring riots of that year, when everybody thought there was going to be a revolution. It was extraordinary. There was fighting around the Arc de Triomphe, there was fighting in Place de la Concorde, there was looting at everything from high-class boutiques right down to chemists and pubs and whatever. And again, it was the yellow vests, Nigel. It was the fuel protesters, nominally, but I think there are a lot of other unhappy groups joining in as well.
So this has gone way beyond green taxes. This is now just an excuse to go out and riot.
Exactly. It's a manifestation of massive anger towards the political class here. Everybody thinks the political class is corrupt, useless, it's not reforming, it's not doing anything for the people, and they've got a president who really doesn't represent much. He's not a socialist, he's not a conservative, he's an independent, he's a default candidate. He's in power because the establishment parties were so poor, but he's not doing much, he's not doing anything, and so they all hate him as well.
Is there an element, Peter, of anti-Paris, of anti-the metropolitan elites, not just the president?
Absolutely right. A lot of rich people in Paris, lots of people with lots of flats that they don't need, people who go shopping on the Champs-Élysées and the Rue Saint-Honoré on a Saturday, and the anger is directed towards them. It's a society where people generally lead pretty modest lives. The vast majority of the population want to just have they want the whole of August off, but they want a relatively fine life in between, and they want to work hard, but they can't afford it at the moment. The cost of living is huge. Companies are finding all kinds of ways to put up costs. Utilities cost more, phones cost more, everything costs more, and they blame this complacent Paris establishment.
Now, one thing that completely confused me was to see these yellow vests out protesting in Brussels yesterday, which is, of course, in Belgium. What on earth was going on there?
Absolutely right. Well, the main thing about these yellow vests is that they're great marketing, to put it in blunt terms. Yep. They're really selling their revolution to France. And the idea is that it's quite a simple concept. You get one of these yellow jackets that everybody has to carry in the boots of their cars in France and also in Belgium. You put it on your back and you're suddenly a yellow vest. And it's effectively a revolution overflowing into neighbouring countries, as you say. A lot of trouble in Brussels. The hope of the yellow vests is that it will slip into Portugal, into Spain, all kinds of neighbouring countries. Who knows? We may even see them in Britain at one stage.
Well, that's been suggested to me by some of my callers and messages. I'm not so sure that we do things that way here, but who's to say? And Peter, finally, what are the prospects for these protests continuing? Because it wasn't just Paris, was it? It was happening in Marseille, I think in Tours. Are they saying these protests go on?
Yes, they will go on, Nigel. Every day, every Saturday until Christmas is the idea, at least. And the idea is that they will humiliate the government, they'll humiliate Mr. Macron, make Paris a very dangerous place on a Saturday. Lots of Britons come over, don't they, to do their Christmas shopping. Lots of other people come into Paris. They won't come. It will cost a fortune for the Paris economy, for the national economy in cities like Marseille and Toulouse. And, to put it bluntly again, it's been very, very effective. Whether you agree with it or not, None of us like violence, but it is being very, very effective, this campaign.
Clearly. Peter, thank you. That was Peter Allen, LBC's Paris correspondent. As he said, he's covered many riots in France over the years, and they do like a bit of revolt, the French, whether it's the smallholders or whoever it is. Often the fishermen, of course, blocking the Channel ports and Operation Stack coming in on the M20 in Kent. But really extraordinarily violent scenes that we saw in Paris yesterday. Isn't it funny that in Paris, people started coming in to protest against green taxes, but in London, we've got protest groups stopping the traffic because they want more green taxes. Only 22 miles separates us, but gosh, we're slightly different political cultures, aren't they? And I really don't think that we will see large-scale street protest if Brexit is stopped like that. We'll see some, but I don't think we do things the same way. So back to the government will not issue at this stage the legal advice from the Attorney General on what the protocol, the backstop, actually means and whether we'd be trapped, perhaps indefinitely, inside a customs union. And if that's true, then what on earth was Mrs May doing at the G20 saying, oh, we'll be able to do free trade deals with all of you very soon, because it simply wouldn't be true. So there's a big pressure now coming on the government to release that information. And if that then leads to a massive, crushing defeat in the House of Commons, one that can't be overcome, we could be headed towards a no-deal Brexit. Does that scare you? Graham is a new caller from Sheffield. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel.
Are you scared? Are you scared, Graham, by the prospect of no deal?
I think it will lead in the short term to disruption if there's not been enough preparation. But in the long term, I think that since we trade with so many countries around the world on World Trade Organization, and although it's not what I do now, I was in business and industry for 15 years, and we always found a way to actually do things. And I think that we are a nation of entrepreneurs. But the reason I rang, Nigel, what I find so interesting is Nick Clegg used to be the Sheffield Hallam MP.
Yep.
And I bumped into him when he'd set up a stall in the local village centre and obviously was campaigning for Remain. Now, having spent quite a lot of my time both living and working around Europe, I decided that I wanted to chat to him for his views because I was genuinely undecided. I was originally in favour of the idea of an EEC, as was my family, but I was concerned at what I saw as the increasing power grab by Brussels. And in particular, I wanted to know what his views were in the event that we voted to leave.
Yep.
He, of course, was saying, oh, no, we'll remain. So trying to get him to actually say what he thought about leave was like trying to pin jelly to the wall. Eventually, he agreed, and I quote, if in the unlikely event that we vote to leave, that's it, we leave. And I said, no second referendum? He said, no second referendum. I said, what about trying to undermine or overturn Brexit? He said, no, leave. Well, effectively, he said leave means leave. Now, yeah, I know, that's what I thought too. I then pointed out to him that the Irish, the French, and the Dutch, and I didn't realise at the time, but also the Danes, had all been told, you voted the wrong way. And in the case of the Irish, they were told to vote again until they got the right answer.
As were the Danes, yeah.
As were the Danes. And in the case, as I understand it, of the French and Dutch, the government sort of ignored it and found a way to get round it via the back door.
Yes.
To which Nick Clegg replied, oh, that's undemocratic. That couldn't possibly happen here.
Well, since, Graham, that conversation you had with him, since that conversation, not only is he now saying that we have to effectively have an exit from Brexit, he's got a knighthood too. How do you feel about that?
This is a programme that four-letter words probably...
No, please don't. Please get me in terrible trouble.
It would. And I find it interesting, of course, that last October he published a book, what was it, How to Stop Brexit?
Yes, that's right.
But I think there are several wider issues on this, which I'd like to comment on, if I may.
Comment on one, Graham, because time is short.
Right. Well, leaving aside... the one I'd like to comment on, then, is the accusation that people who voted didn't know what they were voting for, which has always been aimed at Leavers.
Yep.
And it would be fair to say that I actually started as a Remainer before the election day, and I've ended up as a fervent Brexiteer. Why? Because things like the European Army, we were promised it wasn't going to happen.
And it is now happening.
And it's happening.
Yep.
But I said I was in business for 15 years. I'm now actually in higher education. And I deal with students 18 to 25 plus on a daily basis. And although this is a straw poll rather than, pure academic research, I have been asking them, how have you voted and why? And it's probably about 60-40, although one of the first years said that his sixth form, it was more like 90-10, if they'd been able to vote in favour of Remain. So I asked why. And the typical answer was because it's the status quo.
Yeah.
And that's what my mates are doing. Now, when I asked them if they'd ever heard of a guy called Count Kudenova-Kalergi and the Kalergi Prize and the EU's aims of the federal United States of Europe, mixing everybody up, they went, no. I said, have you even visited the EU's websites and looked at their aims? No. And these are undergraduates, by the way. So I said, so in that case, why... why...
Status quo. Graham, I'm going to have to leave it there, but you're right. It is the power of the status quo, and much in life is the power of what your mates are doing. But actually, far from a status quo, since that referendum, it's European army, it's the ambition to remove veto from foreign policy too. And yet Stephen Barclay, the Brexit Secretary, seems to want us to support all of that. It's beyond me. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's now 10:46.
LBC at the weekend. Majid Nawaz.
Theresa May's being somewhat disingenuous, selling this as an advantage of her deal, saying she's protected Northern Ireland and she's protected Gibraltar. No, the correct word is it defers the answer. It doesn't settle the answer. It simply fudges it, kicks it into the long grass in the hope that it goes away.
Leading Britain's conversation. Majid Nawaz. Today from 12 on LBC.
Join Clive Bull every Sunday evening from 6 for the Consumer Hour on LBC.
Is this a common problem, the disputes over whether something arrived and the couriers and who's responsible?
When you order anything online, the delivery company is contracted by the retailer, and the retailer is responsible for that order all the way up to the point where it's delivered to you. So if it goes missing in delivery, the retailer is responsible.
The Consumer Hour on LBC with Which. Impartial advice, investigations and reviews. Keep questioning.
Are you 65 or over? More flu vaccine is available now at NHS, GP surgeries and pharmacies. So speak to them if you've not had it yet, and make sure you get your free flu jab. Cold weather can make you more likely to catch a winter illness that could become very serious. So if you start to feel unwell, even if it's just a cough or a cold, get help from your pharmacist before it gets more serious. Help us help you stay well this winter.
So today our most popular dishes are avocado on toast, or you can have avocado with chili on toast, or there's the avocado with chorizo on toast, or you might like the avocado on toast with peppers, or there's avocado on toast with salmon, or you could try out avocado on toast with lemon.
And for those that don't follow the herd, the new Jaguar I-Pace, our award-winning all-electric vehicle. Jaguar, a breed apart.
As a medical first responder, I know firsthand when it comes to saving a life, seconds make the difference.
Vodafone helps South Central Ambulance Service get to critical incidents quickly by delivering emergency details securely over our network, direct to an app that's part of our total workforce mobility solution. Search Vodafone Business Solutions to discover how we're so much more than mobile. Vodafone, the future is exciting. Ready? Subject to area availability, minimum terms apply. Details at vodafone.co.uk Business Solutions.
Forget winter. Escape to Alat. Book your November-December holiday to year-round sunny Red Sea and enjoy sensational beaches, amazing water sports and non-stop fun in the sun. Direct low-cost flight and a limited time offer from £42. Book your trip now at travelalat.com.
Have you had an operation that has left you with persistent pain around the healed scar? You may feel this pain as burning, aching, shooting, throbbing or stabbing. At St Pancras Clinical Research, we're looking at a new potential treatment for this pain, which we apply topically. The study will take place in London, and if you volunteer, you'll be paid for your time and reasonable expenses. Find out more at stpancrasclinicalresearch.com. That's stpancrasclinicalresearch.com.
Being from the olden days, Royal London believed that if you've got a bit of wealth, it's best to share it out.
Share your chickens, rich man!
Or you might get a mutiny on your hands. That's why they do a thing called profit share. After a good year, they share part of their profits with their eligible customers.
Oh, that's pretty decent.
Ask your financial advisor about Royal London Profit Share.
You could get back less than you paid in. Applicable to eligible customer plans provided by the Royal London Mutual Insurance Society Limited beginning on or after the 1st of July 2001. Exclusions and conditions apply. Award not guaranteed, reviewed annually.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
If we're headed towards no deal, are we scared of no deal? And if you are scared, you tell me. 0345 6060 973. Mark says, I predict UKIP will wipe the floor with the Conservatives and Labour at the next general election if Brexit is betrayed. Well, Mark, I think the potential, the possibility electorally for UKIP has never, ever been better. But I think the party's headed in a very bad and worrying direction, and I'm having to consider very carefully my own future within it. And at 11 o'clock, I'll talk to you about one or two of the press stories that are out today that are true, and I should be asking for your advice. Do you think if UKIP's now to link up with the far right, I should stay with it or not? So we'll do that from 11 o'clock. I'm off to Edinburgh. Lisa, we could be headed for no deal. We're told it could be. I listened to Sir Keir Starmer this morning saying it would be catastrophic. Are you scared of that?
Hi, Nigel. No, I'm not. I think all of this is just scare stories, and a lot of people around the world, more prosperous countries than Britain and the European Union, actually trade according to WTO rules. So I think, really this is just a red herring, really. And like the Irish border, I come from Canada, and we've always had a border between the United States and Canada, and it's pretty frictionless. And
yes,
they trade a lot of goods and services, and per capita, it's far higher than than European Union. So.
Well, very
anyway.
interesting, Lisa. Very interesting. On this Irish border, this whole backstop, us being trapped in a customs union to stop a hard border. So the Irish government say they, under no circumstances, including, by the way, no deal, would build a hard border. We have said under no circumstances would we put up a hard border. When Mr Barnier was asked whether the European Union would put up a hard border, he said no. And interestingly, the World Trade Organization themselves, Lisa, on Friday said that there'd be no need for a hard border if the UK leaves on WTO terms. It's almost like it's been the great hoax, hasn't it, of the Brexit negotiations?
Yes, I agree. And it's really like my friends, in North America, Canada and the United States, they're really incredulous about this, what's going on here. Nobody understands what's going on and why we're getting so into these deals, and why there was even further integration with the European Union to begin with, because we've always had a free trade deal with the United States and in Canada, and it's worked fairly well.
Yeah,
there are a few squabbles because the Canadians unfairly subsidize the products and things, but
there is some agricultural tariff, and I know that goods go back and forth on that bridge from Detroit to Canada. But I've looked at that, and rather than any stops or checks, everything's registered online. Everyone knows the companies.
It is. It's pretty fairly frictionless too. And I just wanted to say too that the United States, in many ways, the issue of standards, which Jeremy Corbyn is always going on about, is that it's very complex, and it's much more complex than he makes out. It's not like if we trade with the United States, it's not going to necessarily mean lower standards. And
in many areas, Lisa, it might mean higher standards. No, I agree with that.
Than the European Union. And for instance, worker safety is there are more deaths in the EU than there is in America. And America has higher water and air standards for sure.
They're very interesting points, Lisa. And of course, I guess standards in America have to be higher because, hey, if you get sued in America, the sums of money are eye-watering. Lisa, thank you for that. And Canada, America, get on with it. They do it. There's no reason why we can't do the same. Jenny on Facebook says, a no deal is what we want. May is arrogant and self-serving. A lot more people, a lot more leavers now coming to the view that no deal is the only way Brexit's going to be delivered. Phil is calling from Finchley. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Nigel. I'm not one of those perhaps you want to talk to.
What on earth do you mean by that, Phil?
Leave 2.5 years ago.
Phil, hang on. The point of this show is we speak to everybody with all different opinions, and we do so in a civil manner. So if you want to disagree with me, you're very welcome to.
Nigel?
Yeah, hello? Hello? Oh, well, he's disappeared. Never mind. Let's go to Taunton and speak to Ian. Ian, hello.
Hello, Nigel. How's it going?
Good morning. Well, it's very interesting, isn't it? We've had all these different arguments have gone on for 2 years, and we're almost back to where we started. That some people are saying remain, and some people are saying just leave.
I've got to be honest, Nigel. I'm very, very angry with the blithe assertions that a no deal will be fine. Speaking as a dairy farmer,
yes,
the food industry in Britain. And by the food industry, I mean everything from dairy farmers, beef farmers, whatever kind of farmer. The industries that support them, the logistics in and out with goods, the logistics of the supplied goods into food processing, the processes, the industries that supply them. The whole thing from top to bottom is Britain's biggest industry by some way. If we crash out of the EU on WTO rules, we're stuck with 80%. Now, the idea that May's deal is a bad one because it locks us into EU rules, why would that be a bad thing? Because at the end of the day, Mr. Farage,
we voted against the deal.
EU, I've still got to adhere to the EU to be able to export into the EU. And the idea that it's going to be some wonderful panacea where I can export to China or America,
well, Ian,
there is no point in me exporting to these countries
Ian,
because nobody in Britain can compete with them on a financial basis.
Let's get a handle on the UK economy, shall we?
Well,
only 12% of the UK economy is exports to the European Union. Why should the other 88% have to adhere to EU rules?
Well, why on earth should there be, the problem is every business that exports to the EU also exports to other parts of the world.
And 95% of business. Ian, I'm going to make this point again.
You do not want to say, well, we'll get in the black labour and we'll cut all the safety standards.
Ian, 95%.
But we'll have to put them back in to export to the EU.
95% of UK companies don't trade overseas. Why should they be wrapped up in EU rules? Why should they not be able to be more competitive? And of course you're right.
How are they going to be more competitive when you're speaking about removing tariffs on goods from third countries, which mean that they're then going to come in and undercut them? At the end of the day, Mr. Farage, the important part of our economy, very important part of our economy here, Mr. Farage,
you want to keep food expensive,
is the manufacturing sector in this country. It is the thing that is the basis of our entire economy. It's the bit that generates the cash that spreads the stuff around later on. Between manufacturing and, to a certain extent, financial services.
Yeah, but Ian,
all the rest of it generate cash.
Ian, we've done this debate. It was in the referendum. We voted.
We haven't done this debate.
We voted to leave.
I've never heard anybody say to me what is going on with this, and nobody from either leave or remain has ever said to me, look, this is what's going to happen. Well, I'm telling you as a dairy farmer that, I can't wait 6 months for some deal to be hammered out with somebody. When I send, when my factory gets a phone call from, say, Paris and says, we want a tank load of cream, Mr. Muller, They can't send that tanker there unless they know it can drive down the M6 or the M1 or wherever it is and get onto a ferry and go straight there.
Well, if the French fishermen are protesting if the French fishermen are protesting or Operation Stacks in, even as EU members, you've had problems with that, haven't you?
Let's be serious about this.
Let's be serious about this, Ian. Are you telling me?
We're looking at months of.
Are you telling me that the M20 will be a lorry park for the next 50 years?
Pardon?
Are you suggesting that the M20 will be a lorry park for decades to come?
I'm certainly suggesting that the M20 will be a lorry park until all these negotiations are hammered out. And if we crash out without a deal,
well, I tell you what, Ian, it'll be a negotiated no deal, and we better crack on with it. Ian, dairy farmer there, very, very concerned. Now, there is a Brexit rally planned in Whitehall for next week, organised by UKIP. One of the speakers will be the founder of the English Defence League, Tommy Robinson. I've said today that if the party continues down this route, it effectively will become the BNP. So as the former leader of UKIP, I'm asking you, what would you do if you were me? Do you think it's time I just said, goodbye UKIP, it's not what I led, it's changed? Call me on 0345 6060 973. Maybe you think I should try and lead it again and save it, in which case text to 84850. Or maybe you think Tommy Robinson is the future of UKIP, in which case tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, you can watch us on Facebook and comment there too.
On your radio, on your phone, and here.
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, Labour is promising to start contempt of Parliament proceedings against the government tomorrow over Theresa May's Brexit deal. The party says it's vital MPs see the full legal advice given to the Prime Minister by the Attorney General and not a summary of that text. Shadow Brexit Secretary Sir Keir Starmer says anything less than full disclosure is not good enough.
Having been a lawyer for many years, I know I've seen a lot of summaries of legal advice, and summaries are not as good as the full legal advice, and they tend to leave out the bits that the author of the summary doesn't want people to know about.
As calls grow for a second referendum on Brexit, Ian Blackford, the SNP's leader in Westminster, has told LBC if there is one, his party wants another on Scottish independence.
We've no real desire in Scotland to be taken out of the European Union against our will, and if that is where we end up, we're going to go through various stages. If that were to happen, then we need to think about what options are open to us. And of course, one of the options would be, if we so determine it and that decision's not been taken, would be that Scotland has its own referendum on its constitutional future.
In other headlines this hour, work has started in Paris to clean up graffiti on the Arc de Triomphe after protesters vandalised it. Yesterday, more than 130 people were injured and another 412 were arrested after clashes between police and those unhappy with the rising cost of living. LBC's correspondent in Paris, Peter Allen, has told Nigel this third weekend of demonstrations will continue.
Every Saturday until Christmas is the idea, and the idea is that they will humiliate the government, make Paris into a very dangerous place on a Saturday. It will cost a fortune for the Paris economy, for the national economy in cities like Marseille and Toulouse, and it's been very, very effective.
Israeli police say Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu should be indicted in a corruption case involving Israel's telecom giant. Officers say they've evidence to charge him and his wife with accepting bribes, fraud and breach of trust, all of which Mr. Netanyahu denies. President Trump says he expects to meet with North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un again in January or February. The leaders held a historic summit in Singapore in June to discuss the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. A survey suggests almost a third of GPs are likely to leave their job within the next 5 years. Stress and retirement are the common reasons. Senior doctors say that is gravely concerning. Former Shadow Chancellor Ed Balls is standing down as chairman of Championship leaders Norwich City Football Club. He'll relinquish his role on Boxing Day, switching to become club ambassador and vice president. Tyson Fury says he's 100% up for a rematch after his heavyweight boxing fight with Deontay Wilder ended in a draw. The British fighter claims he should have won, despite being knocked down twice during the fight in Los Angeles. LBC weather: patchy rain in the north, bright spells turning to showers elsewhere, a high of 15 degrees. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Philip Chrysikos.
Make Christmas a little special with Twisted Knots American Craft IPA, Craft Orange Pale Ale and Red Rye Craft Pale Ale, all for just 99p a bottle. Have a Merry Christmas and a hoppy new beer. Lidl. Big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI in Scotland.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
There would never have been a referendum. There never would have been Brexit. There never would be the fights that are going on in Parliament at the moment had it not been for something called UKIP. And I was involved with it right from the very start, way back in 1993, when it was officially formed as a party. And I worked for it and fought for it for a quarter of a century, believing totally that it could be a force to really change British politics. Now, in many ways, I suppose you could argue it's been the most successful political party in history because it achieved its goal. It forced a referendum and it helped get the Leave vote, along too with others, of course. After that, many thought UKIP was finished. There was no need for it. But given where we are now, I mean, imagine if a second referendum was forced upon this country. There would be millions of people looking for a new political home, coming not just from the Conservative, but from the Labour parties too. In fact, in many ways, UKIP's electoral potential is far greater today than it ever was when I was the leader of it. And yet, the current leader of it, Gerard Batten, has taken it down a route that many of us find difficult. Tommy Robinson, by the way, that's not his name. His actual name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, and he founded the English Defence League, and he is somebody that speaks out against the Islamification of Britain, sometimes in language that upsets people, but he's somebody who attracts around him, should we just say simply a group of thugs. That whenever there's a march, a rally, where Tom is appearing, there are lots of arrests, police horses get attacked, beer bottles get chucked in the street, and I'm afraid that is what comes with him. He also himself has spent several times now, has been to prison, and you can be an online figure with that background, but I don't think it works with elected party politics in any way at all. But of course, he couldn't join UKIP or be involved in it because I'd put a rule in place banning anybody who'd been with the EDL or the BNP from even being a humble paid-up member of the party. But now he's been appointed as an advisor to the leader, and they're planning a march and a rally in Whitehall next week, a UKIP march and rally at which Robinson would be one of the speakers. And I've warned against this for month after month after month. Well, a photograph published in today's Sunday Telegraph shows the leader of UKIP sitting next to him, Tommy Robinson. And next to Tommy Robinson is a guy who 2 years ago was jailed for the attempted armed kidnapping of a man in Hampshire. In response to this, Mr Batten said he was not aware of this man's background, and UKIP as a party said he was just there as a bodyguard. Yet this gentleman is known to organise all of Tommy Robinson's rallies. UKIP, frankly, have lied about this because they were told on Wednesday who he was. But that's what's happening. You get Tommy Robinson, you get criminals like that, and there are other people in this photograph who are former BNP and far less than savoury. I'm not being snobby about this at all. Far from it. I always wanted UKIP to embrace as many working class people as it could. I just felt you couldn't effectively argue against excess immigration, illegal immigration. You couldn't do so if you had people who were racist within the party. And I think that's what this does. And my own view from what it's worth, is if this march goes ahead with Gerard as leader of UKIP, I think UKIP becomes the BNP. It's just as simple as that. So what do? I've given the best part of my adult life to helping build this political movement. I am disgusted, but also quite depressed at seeing what is going on. What should I do, folks? Do I stick with it? Or do I walk away? Not an easy situation, not a conversation, by the way, that I ever wanted to have. Patrick is a new caller from Oxford. Good morning, Patrick.
Hi, Nigel.
Good morning. So, when you saw those photographs, and incidentally, Gerard Batten actually tweeted out this picture of him with this group on Friday, what sort of image does that give UKIP?
Well, I think it's more than damaging for UKIP. I think this probably is, the last nail, not the first, because they've been in decline for a while, the last nail in the coffin. and I think you have no choice but to move. And also, I would say here that UKIP, at least for the last couple of years before the referendum, you was UKIP. So it's no loss to UKIP if you leave, because people were following you and not UKIP. I mean, obviously there was the ideal of UKIP, what that was set up.
Yeah.
But the real push, the 6 months before the referendum, I think you really come to the fore, and people listened to what you were saying, because unlike a lot of politicians, MPs, whatever, you was telling the truth. And we can go back to the thing about the European Army again.
Yeah, I got that one. Well, Patrick, I try to tell the truth as I saw it, and it's important that we emphasise that. So you think I should just walk away now, Patrick, given that it's going down this route?
I don't think you do yourself any damage at all. I mean, UKIP have damaged themselves by allowing Tommy Robinson, or whatever his name is, to become a part of the party, and I think... I mean, obviously, there's lots of games going on in the background. We've seen that all these newspapers are changing their tunes and now supporting, the Brexit graft, which is bizarre. It's almost like a conspiracy in that, are people being leaned on in the background? I mean, because I believe, as you do, I mean, and polls don't mean anything. I think most people would accept that we would just leave. And
and you know what, Patrick? If UKIP was anything like fulfilling its current potential, rather than obsessing about Tommy Robinson, and indeed appearing to be a party fighting a religious crusade against Islam, which is something, again, I never ever wanted.
It's never what it is about.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. And if it was sticking to Brexit and the betrayal of Brexit, my feeling is, in the opinion polls, it'd be a lot higher than it is. Patrick, thank you. And Patrick thinks my time is up with my party. John is a new caller from Bristol. Good morning, John.
Hello, Nigel. How are you?
I'm well. So do you agree with me that in many ways UKIP now should be riding very high in the opinion polls?
Yes, I do. I do think that. But I don't think dividing UKIP at this point is going to be beneficial to anybody. Can I just state what I think?
Please do.
I like you, Nigel, and I'm really, really proud of what you've done for UKIP, and I'm really, really proud of what you've made us aware of some of these things that have been going on. I'm so happy with that, and I'm so happy with the work you are doing in Europe. You are an absolute champion. Thank you, Nigel.
Okay.
I also don't think you should leave UKIP. I really don't. But I do think you need to give them some time to breathe at the moment around what they're doing. I don't agree with everything they're doing. I don't agree necessarily with Gerard Batten waving Tommy Robinson around the way he is. And I do believe somebody needs to come in there and curb Tommy Robinson's mouth and what he's getting up to. But there is a movement that's happening in this country. How should we call it? You've got to be so careful these days. A populist movement, a working class movement, a movement for the people. It's not perfect, but for the first time, a movement is coming forward where we can truly be heard and talk about really, really uncomfortable things that, yes, are very uncomfortable, but they need to be talked about before this country collapses.
John, let me just broaden this out a little bit. All right.
Yes. Please.
This march that takes place next Sunday in Whitehall, UKIP branded march.
Yes, I'm going. Yes.
If you look at the previous events that Tommy Robinson has spoken at, every single one of them ends in violence. Every single one of them ends in bad behaviour. I say bottles being thrown, police horses being attacked. I mean, appalling scenes.
Often from both sides, though, Nigel.
Listen, John, no question. I'm sure that is true, and I'm sure there'll be antagonistic people that turn up as well. But here's my point, John. All right? It's one thing to drag the name of UKIP through the mud, all right? But it's quite another to damage the Brexit cause. And my fear is that march, firstly, if you're going to have a Brexit march, it should be cross-party, not just one party, because Brexit is bigger when it finally comes to it than any one individual party. But secondly, that march takes place 48 hours before the most important vote in our lifetimes on an issue that was decided in the greatest democratic exercise in the history of this nation. And I do not want Gerard Batten and Tommy Robinson being seen to lead something that is violent, nasty, unpleasant, and will be used for the next decade to say this is what Brexit represents. And that, John, is why I have said, and it's up to them, but I've said to the UKIP NEC, who meet this evening, I think by passing a motion of no confidence in Gerard Batten today, not only do you save UKIP, but you might just save Brexit too.
Well, I thought I was about to get cut off then.
No, of course not.
I do half agree with that, but I mean there are certain problems here. For example, the campaign going on after that. So when is the next event being held by yourself? Well,
the next public event that I'm speaking at will be the 14th of December, but I'll be speaking probably in the European Parliament before that.
Oh, no, sorry, I thought there was a rally going on after the rally on the 9th in London, an official rally of some sort.
Not that I'm aware of, John, not that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Not that I'm aware of. And by the way, when you talk about stuff that needs to be debated in the open, I do agree with you. I do think we need genuine free speech in this country, and I understand that. And
Thank God you do that,
and it's fine for Robinson. Let Robinson do what he wants to do. But if you put him together with a political party, it will be the death of that political party, in my opinion, John.
I just worry that at the moment there is a division in UKIP between. I mean, what really is the working class, and there is a rumbling at the moment of people in this country that are sick of being on the dole. They want to work. They want to do something about it. They want their voices heard. And at the moment, it's almost like the only option they feel they have is this populist movement, no matter who it's being led by. And that's a problem. We need to unite, Nigel, not divide, unite. And can I just say one last thing?
Very quickly.
Everybody that's talking about this march, even the most unsavoury characters that I don't know, I just know of, are all talking about peaceful Brexit protest. That's all this is about, and about the Morocco 11 and 12 on the 10th and 11th deal. This is what this is about, and everybody's talking about being peaceful.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, John. Thank you for your heartfelt call. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's now 11:16.
This is LBC.
When you think of the internet, you think of people searching, sharing, and communicating with each other. But in this connected age, our smart devices are talking to each other too. It's called the Internet of Things. And with BT, your business can lead the way in this new age of connectivity. Find out more and enter to win a brand new iPad Pro with a smart keyboard at lbc.co.uk. BT, helping business relationships stay on track.
My name's Frank. When I was on the streets, I was cold, lonely and scared. Christmas was the hardest time. I was absolutely by myself. I had nowhere to go. But then I came to Crisis at Christmas. It was awesome. Crisis provided proper food, showers, doctors and advice. It was a real ray of hope and it changed my life. So please reserve a place for someone at Crisis at Christmas for just £28.18. Go to crisis.org.uk and help someone else like me out of homelessness this Christmas. Thanks for listening.
So I still remember the feeling of walking into my GCSEs. I think the weeks before I wasn't aiming that high. I kind of thought good was going to be good enough, so I didn't really try much harder. But then I remember in the final lesson, we each found a note on our desks. Our teacher had written us personal messages. Mine said, if you're going to think at all, think big. And if you're going to think big, think bigger. I was thinking small, but she inspired me to think otherwise.
Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. Search Get Into Teaching.
There's nothing without risk.
From the author of The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel,
I've come to paint a portrait.
Alicia Vikander, Dane DeHaan.
You two really think you'll carry this off?
Jack O'Connell, Holiday Granger.
I'll tell your husband what you've been up to.
Tom Hollander, Christoph Waltz, and Judi Dench.
You've been busy. You've not been painting. No offence.
Tulip Fever, in cinemas December 7th.
Conventional attitudes. Majority opinion. Everyday compromise. Now, you can leave it all behind. Way behind. Jaguar approved used. Winner of What Car Best Used Car Scheme 2 years running. Stay away from the middle of the road. Search Jaguar approved. Jaguar, the art of performance.
We are gathered to honour Dave. Showing utter disregard for your own safety, you did haul the Christmas tree down from the attic, untangle the Christmas lights, and with true dedication, even found the broken bulb. So we say, someone deserves a bells.
For the facts, visit drinkaware.co.uk.
Wait, where's my debit card? I just used it. Did I leave it in my jacket? Maybe I left it in my jeans. Oh no, I definitely put my jeans in the wash. And if it's in the washing machine, it'll be spinning round and round and round.
Wouldn't it be great if you could press pause on the card panic? Well, now you can. With the Lloyds Bank mobile banking app, you can freeze certain transactions on your Visa debit card until you find it.
Oh, there it is.
Lloyds Bank, by your side. Mobile banking app available to UK personal internet banking customers with an iPhone or Android device. T's and C's apply.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
In some ways, I'm a victim of my own success, because the way to deal with the BNP, I found, was to go to their voters and say, if you're voting for them out of frustration, but you don't support their racist policies, come and vote for me. And they did. And electorally, we killed the BNP. But then they fell to bits infighting, leaving, and the party disappeared, leaving a lot of people out there without a home. And those people now are trying to infiltrate and take over UKIP. And they're being encouraged in this by the current leader, Gerard Batten. So I am upset, very, very down about what is going on with this party. And I'm trying to make up my mind, unless they get rid of this leader today, do I stick with it or do I leave? I've asked for advice, and goodness me, there's no shortage of it coming through. Some of it we can even publish. Dear Nigel, you should start a new party with disgruntled Tory and Labour figures who see May throwing Brexit under the bus. It's time for a new party, modern, positive, representing the people. The People's Party. UKIP is now anti-Muslim and more than borderline racist. Crowdfund a new party and I'll chuck in 5,000 quid, says Phil in Teignmouth in Devon. UKIP has been infiltrated by the other parties purposefully to bring it into disrepute. You have to walk away, Nigel, with others and start a new party, being careful who you decide to work with. Well, I did in the past ban these people sitting around this table. They were banned from even being humble members of UKIP. And I think by doing that, we were able to talk about tough issues. It was right from every perspective. Susie is a new caller from Oxshott in Surrey. Susie, what do you think I should do?
Well, I think you should disassociate yourself from them, to be honest with you. I think you have kind of moved on in a way, and you're a very articulate, intelligent man. And what I can't understand is, why has Theresa May not, or maybe she has, had a meeting with you to discuss the ins and outs of leaving?
Susie, not only did she not want me to help at all with the Brexit process, and I think I could have done some useful work in Europe on that, she doesn't even... And did you know, Susie, I'm the only person in this country, I can say this honestly, I'm the only person alive in this country who has got good relationships with many members of the Trump administration, including the President himself. And yet, I've never been asked for a debrief, I've never been asked for a comment, either by her or the Foreign Office. And Susie, you've got to understand, the establishment Tory party hate me. Because Why? Because they never, ever wanted to have a referendum on this issue. You weren't even allowed to discuss the European Union in the early days of David Cameron's prime ministership, and they see me having brought all this down upon their heads. And you know something? They'll never forgive me.
How ridiculous.
It is completely ridiculous, but sadly true.
But you're there, you're an MEP, so you must know more about the European Union than anybody else.
Well, the one thing, Susie, I wanted to do was to use my notoriety and fame around Europe to go out round the car-making areas of Germany, and the wine-producing bits of France would have been okay, and to create huge amounts of publicity, basically saying to industry, put pressure on your own leaders in the European Commission to come to a grown-up deal with the UK. And that was the role that I felt I could have played. But sadly, Susie, I was not wanted. Thank you for your call and for your kind words. I've got a call from Tel Aviv in Israel, a new caller. Good morning, Ilan. How are you?
Good, thank God, Nigel. Lovely to speak to you.
Well, lovely to speak to you.
Your programme regularly.
What,
going to miss you and lauding it to Barnier and Juncker and after March.
But you listen into LBC from Tel Aviv, yeah?
Absolutely. On the internet, moved 18 years ago because of latent anti-Semitism in the UK, which has got obviously a lot worse.
A lot worse, yeah.
I wouldn't blame it on the BNP specifically, probably more from the endemic anti-Semitism of the left, which seems to have be more accepted in circles.
Which has now been more exposed in the last couple of years than it had been before. But as somebody who moved countries because they were worried about the rise of racism, how do you see the direction that UKIP's taking, and in particular its relationship now with Tommy Robinson?
Well, I think we have to separate issues. I've been following Tommy as well, and frankly, although he may have had been a little bit misguided in the past, I think he's mostly directed by his experience, his niece or something that was one of the grooming victims. I haven't really heard a racist word come out of him in the last 4 years. And I think that obviously he may attract the wrong kind of people. But to judge a politician because of some, and in this case quite a few supporters, is the same thing that's going on in America, that people say Trump is a racist because one or two racists cling to him. So I think that if he was to cling to them, that would be different.
But the difference is, whatever they say about Trump, he doesn't appoint these people to senior positions or organisational positions within the Republican Party. And what we're talking about here is we are talking about, a rally that's taking place next week, the chief organiser of which was just 2 years ago imprisoned for the attempting armed kidnapping of somebody. I mean, isn't that pretty appalling?
So you're talking about Tommy? Because as far as I know, all he was done for was contempt of court and something they found on his mortgages.
No. I'm talking about the man sitting to the right of Tommy Robinson, all right, who was at that meeting on Friday and is the chief organiser of the rally next week, and he was in prison 2 years ago, and that's the problem, isn't it? Look, right. Robinson himself has a long criminal record. He's been to prison many, many times, all right, and he may be, for many people, a great champion because he stands up and says stuff that nobody else dares say. And he may be seen as a symbol for some of those people. But you can't have somebody that attracts the kind of entourage that he does, that has the background that he does, that can do anything in a political party, but narrow its base down so small that you destroy it effectively as a national party. And, here's the point. UKIP was a major political party. It won the European elections of 2014, something that no party had done, i.e. winning a national election, since 1906. 6 million people voted UKIP over the elections of 2014 and 15, and my argument is that Tommy will have his support group, but it'll put a glass ceiling on UKIP's national support at somewhere between 500,000 and 750,000.
So, obviously I can see your concern, and it's gone downhill since you left. So you're obviously sorely missed in that department as well. But I think that you may need your talents may be needed somewhere else where they can actually be put to good effect.
Well, who'd have me?
Well, I don't know. First of all, you need to be more assertive. I gathered that you were diddled out of the election in South Thanet because of...
well, we're waiting. We have to be very careful about that because there is an ongoing case. So we won't talk about that. But look, let's see. What I'm really worried about, just to sort of finish off on this point, what I'm really worried about isn't just UKIP. It's this march going ahead in the name of UKIP next Sunday, which, if previous form is anything to go by, is likely to turn violent, and that image being used as the face of Brexit for years to come. That worries me.
I agree with you on that.
That worries me far more than the future of me or of UKIP.
It could definitely prejudice the Brexit,
and that's my worry.
I just wanted to add that I think that the Conservative Party is suffering from a lack of leadership. That Theresa May is shearing the ship of state to the rocks, and someone's going to be needed there to pick up the pieces. So I would actually like to propose a suggestion that you try to stand as a Conservative MP and be there for the country when in a place where you can actually have an impact.
I promise you they won't have me. Not under this leadership anyway. Listen, thank you very much indeed for your call from Tel Aviv. Morris says UKIP has always attracted far-right types, so why not an ex-EDL leader? Not when I was leader, Morris. They couldn't even join the party. On Twitter, you are insulting a lot of decent people. You are demonising Tommy Robinson. I think a job on The Guardian would suit you now. Look, I don't know who you are, Northern Soul, but I mean, if you really seriously think that the UKIP leader, being in a room full of convicts and thugs, including attempted kidnappers, is the way forward for a political party, or indeed for the Brexit cause, well, you and I are living on a totally different planet. OK. Peter in Lancing says, after voting UKIP for years, I will likely hold my nose and vote Conservative for the first time to keep Labour out because of the first-past-the-post system. Well, Peter in Lancing, there's a lot more people who would have voted UKIP had it not been for the first-past-the-post system, but we, I guess, have to do what we can. Kerry from Morden says, I also pledge £5,000 to a new party you set up. So, a lot of pressure on me. One or two of you think I should stick with UKIP. I have to say that my 25 years with UKIP, I haven't quite decided what to do, but I think we're pretty near the end of the road. I just can't associate with this kind of thing. I mean, I never, ever, ever, we never had violence. We never had problems with UKIP supporters, and I don't want to be part of anything like that now. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 11:30 and time for the news with Philip Chryssikos.
Theresa May is being warned she's on course for a historic constitutional row unless the government releases its full legal advice on her Brexit deal. Labour says it will start contempt of Parliament proceedings tomorrow, demanding the Prime Minister releases what the Attorney-General told her. France's president has returned to Paris from the G20 summit in Argentina to see for himself the scenes of rioting in his capital city. Activists torched cars, ransacked buildings and vandalised the Arc de Triomphe during a third weekend of demonstrating at the rising cost of living. The head of the education watchdog in England says schools can't be substitute parents, telling parents not to abdicate their responsibility. In her upcoming annual report, Ofsted's Amanda Spielman will criticise the expectation on schools to solve all the problems children face. LBC weather, patchy rain in the north, bright spells turning to showers elsewhere, a high of 15 degrees.
This is LBC.
Paul bumped his knee against the kitchen door. !! He yelled, at which point his wife burst in and bumped the door against his knee again. !! Yelled Paul. Swearing, a bad habit, but it can help us tolerate pain until we can find something longer lasting, like new Nurofen joint and muscular medicated patches for clinically proven 24-hour pain relief. Nurofen joint and muscular pain relief medicated plasters contain ibuprofen for pain relief. Always read the label.
My name's Frank. When I was on the streets, I was cold, lonely and scared. Christmas was the hardest time. I was absolutely by myself. I had nowhere to go. But then I came to Crisis at Christmas. It was awesome. Crisis provided proper food, showers, doctors and advice. It was a real ray of hope and it changed my life. So please reserve a place for someone at Crisis at Christmas for just £28.18. Go to crisis.org.uk and help someone else like me out of homelessness this Christmas. Thanks for listening.
This Christmas, Branston is the difference between a cheese board and a cheese board. Any crumbly cracker will do, and a thick wedge of creamy cheddar is perfectly fine. But the secret to unlocking its full flavour potential is that sweet pillow of Branston chutney. Caramelised onion, orchard fruit or Mediterranean tomato. Please the cheese this Christmas with Branston chutney. Go on, add some to your shopping list now. Bring out the Branston.
If you're collecting your prescription, don't assume you can claim it for free. Not all benefits entitle you to free prescriptions. And if you claim when you're not entitled, you could face a penalty charge of up to £100. Thankfully, there's a simple way to find out if you should be paying. Search Check Before You Tick online and use our eligibility checker to find out if your benefits mean you can claim for free. Or you can ask your pharmacy team. So always remember to check before you tick. This was brought to you by the NHS.
46 years ago, Swale Heating was born. We've installed thousands of boilers, and now the process is even easier. There's no need for a household survey. Just go to swaleheating.com. Answer a few questions, we'll recommend the best boiler, then install it at a time to suit you. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Alicia, give me some ideas for men's gifts.
The most popular men's gifts are beard trimmers, beard oil, beard mist, beard wax, beard rollers, beard balm, an e-beard, beard spray, beard dye.
For those that don't do the expected, the Jaguar F-Pace, a performance SUV with the DNA of a sports car. Jaguar, a breed apart.
OK, they're in the lift, on their way up. Are you ready to wow them?
Yep, laptop's connected up and client presentation is ready. Oh no, it's on the keyboard.
It's okay. I'll download the file from the cloud onto my laptop.
But they're expecting to see it now.
Relax. It's at 80% already. Talk about an elevator pitch.
When even your most demanding customers expect you to deliver, we'll help everything stay on track for your business with our fastest and most reliable connection ever. Find out more at bt.com/LBC. BT, be there.
Landlords, Direct Line guarantees to beat other insurers' renewal premiums for the same cover. Can your insurance do that? Switch to Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Well, lots of views on what I should do as far as UKIP's concerned if Gerard Batten, after this afternoon's NEC meeting, which begins at 1:30, keeps him as leader in good standing. You are seeking to destroy UKIP. You should be expelled, I get. Having second thoughts now, maybe better to start a new party, ASAP. Wherever you go, you will be supported. Miriam says, Tommy stands up for the people and gives us the truth. I'm a 58-year-old grandmother and I support him. Miriam, lots of people support him and I understand why they do. What I'm saying is it will not work with a political party. It's a very big difference. Graham is a new caller from Aberdeen. Hi, Graham.
Hi, how are you doing, Nigel? Pleasure to speak to you.
Well, I'm pretty down in my dumps, Graham, when it comes to this conversation, I have to tell you.
Yeah, you're in a pretty tricky position because Tommy's got a lot of valid points. But he's pretty much a one-trick pony, really. Brexit's fine, and the Islam. There is a problem with Islam in this country, but we can't base Brexit solely on that.
Well, Graham, Graham, just quickly, I've never heard Tommy Robinson say a word about Brexit, and yet he's being pushed to the front of a Brexit rally.
I think he's kind of jumped on the bandwagon a little bit there.
Yeah.
I think he's taken his message onto Brexit and kind of put them together, which I don't think is the best thing for UKIP.
Or for the Brexit cause.
Or probably for the Brexit cause as well, even though it takes a lot of support with them because a lot of people are obviously concerned.
Yes, and Graham, a lot of people have the right to be concerned about, and there are genuine issues out there around free speech, around blind eyes that have been turned by the authorities to some terrible goings on. I completely understand all of that, and I understand why people see him as somebody, who is prepared to talk about these issues. But what horrifies me, Graham, are the kind of people he seems to gather around him.
I think you're exaggerating a little bit. There is, of course, an element that are undesirable, but the majority of people that support him are pretty much normal people. It wasn't that long ago that you were being branded an Islamophobe and a racist and a bigot and a xenophobe.
Yes, but without any justification at all. And I
understand.
And here's my point, Graham. Here's my point. Photographed next to Tommy Robinson at this meeting, and the organiser of Robinson's public events is 29-year-old Daniel Thomas, all right, who was jailed in 2016 for the attempted armed kidnapping of somebody.
Yeah, I only heard that from you today. I've never heard of that before, so if you I have to take your word for it. So
if you look in today's Sunday Telegraph, you'll see it, and it is true, and we've known about it, Graham. We've known about this since Wednesday, which is why senior figures in UKIP directly warned the Central Party about this, and they chose not to act. It's very difficult for me, Graham, to stick with a party that behaves like this.
I can see you holding up the paper, yeah. Fair enough. That's a good point you're making, and obviously if they knew beforehand.
Quite.
They should have kind of admitted it at the very least and acted on it. But, Tommy is, according to Gerard, just an advisor on grooming gangs and prison reform. If that were the case only, that's maybe okay. But leading the Brexit march on the 9th
is not okay.
And it paints UKIP into the same corner as Tommy's anti-Islam message, which is justified. Brexit is so much
It
more
damages
than that.
Brexit, Graham, and it makes UKIP the BNP, in my view. Thank you. David says, you've deserted UKIP, Nigel. Gerard is the only reason UKIP has not gone bankrupt. Oh, David, I'm still paying my monthly standing order. In fact, I think of all the UKIP MEPs, I've been the biggest donor over the course of the last few years. Perhaps I'll have to cancel that. I've hardly deserted it. What I've done is to stand down as leader and let the next leader get on with it. That's what I've tried to do over the course of the last 2 years. I'm intervening now, not because I want to save just UKIP, but I think Brexit is about to be very seriously damaged. Peter says, walk away from UKIP like you did last time. I've never walked away. I've been the constant there for 25 years. I've put more of my life into it, probably than the rest of the current NEC added up together. I wonder whether they're going to have the courage to act this afternoon. We'll have to see. Tim is a new caller from Falmouth in Cornwall. Good morning.
Hi, Nigel. How are you?
Well, I'm not very happy, Tim, about UKIP.
You're in a predicament, aren't you?
It's a horrible... It really... I feel huge loyalty to the party, and I've seen ups and downs over that quarter of a century, and some horrible downs and some stunning ups. You always think that you stick with your group through good times and bad times, but I didn't, and I was chairman of it, I was national campaign manager, I was leader of it for over a decade. This wasn't about, launching some religious crusade against Islam, and it certainly, was very, very strict on not letting former BNP or EDL people join the party. And Tim, it's becoming something I just don't recognise.
Yeah, I understand that. However, do you not think maybe you should be willing to change your mind on who can and cannot join? The reason I say it is, I know exactly what you're saying about Tommy. He's a rough diamond, but what you've got to remember is he's lived in ground zero, so he's almost, if you want to, and this isn't insulting to Tommy, he's got the post-traumatic stress disorder. He's there living with what he's fighting against. Mm-hmm. And so the people around him that you're referring to also, they've had the same problems. So when you say the guy's got he's in prison for armed robbery or armed kidnapping.
Kidnapping, attempted armed kidnapping,
But I mean, what about Sergeant Blackman? I mean, he shot somebody in cold blood. So you could say he's a murderer, but you could also say he's a hero because he was fighting.
But there's a very Tim. We're talking here about a public event, a public political event that is taking place in Whitehall next Sunday, that is being organised by somebody with that background. I would suggest to you that doesn't just damage UKIP. It damages the Brexit cause too. And I see that, Tim, let's just finish for a sec. I see that as the baggage that Stephen Yaxley Lennon brings with him.
But if you look at his last march when they were trying to free Tommy Robinson, there was no violence, there was no aggression, there was grannies, there was youngsters, there was a complete spectrum of people supporting him. And it went without any hitches whatsoever. The press hated it.
Well, I know one or two people that have been on some of these Tommy Robinson protests who've said there's been some pretty awful behaviour too. Tim, either way, so let me ask you this. Do you think it's wise, 48 hours before the most important vote in Parliament in modern times, for Tommy Robinson and UKIP to hold a rally in Whitehall?
I don't think it'll make any difference who was there.
All right, well, if it makes no difference, I'll be thrilled. But if it does descend into yobbery and thuggery, it'll be the enduring image of Brexit that the Remainers will use for years and years to come. Tim, going to let you go. Go to Richard in Manchester. Richard, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much indeed for taking my call.
Not a bit.
You are the greatest guy on this earth for me, and 17.4 million people are ready to pour money into some coffers to get a new party going, but with all these clowns in Labour falling out, and the same in the Conservative Party, all the lies that are being told by the whole lot of them to keep their jobs is a disgrace. You, Nigel, and I'm not patronising you, have kept us all together. When you went to Australia, I did ring you and I said, Nigel, please don't leave again, because I could feel the momentum of things going completely against Brexit, and we needed you back here. We need you to keep Brexit going through. Then put put it out that 17.4 million can join your new party, whatever you want to call it. Never mind Conservatives, never mind the Labour Party, and let's get going to putting this great country in a position that it deserves, Nigel.
OK, and is UKIP the brand name that can still do that, Richard, in your opinion?
Sir, I'm not qualified to do that.
OK, no, I want your view, I want your gut instinct. You know,
Nigel, you could form another party and call it whatever you want, and people would go for you.
All right, no, well, you've given me tremendous personal support there, Richard. It's very, very kind of you indeed. Well, look, it is a big dilemma for me. I just feel the party that I was part of founding, helped to build and bring to prominence, and some great success at times, I just feel it's becoming a bit unrecognisable from what it was before. A different sense of priorities, and I'm deeply saddened by it. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 11:45.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
A Corbyn senior frontbencher has resigned after allegedly threatening a reporter. Should Kate Osamor now resign as MP?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
Norman Baker, you did on Christmas morning show true courage, stepping forward to peel in the face of overwhelming sprouts, battling that vegetable mountain with nothing more than a tiny little knife. So we say, someone deserves a bells.
For the facts, visit drinkaware.co.uk.
I know who designed Princess Di's wedding dress. I know who phoned home. I know how to do a silly walk. And I know which part of the room you should never put baby in. But I don't know my state pension.
Find out more about your state pension and how much it should be. Get to know your pension. Visit yourpension.gov.uk.
I have cancer. I'm cold. I'm behind with my bills. Can I afford to get to the hospital? Will I lose my job, my home?
Macmillan Cancer Support can help with money worries, so they don't spiral out of control.
I'm warm. I can get help with transport. I will keep my job and my home. I have cancer.
For our free financial information and support, search Macmillan Money Worries. Macmillan, we're here to help you live life as fully as you can.
With a 2-year unlimited mileage warranty and 2-year UK and European roadside assistance, we're there for you. Even if you're not too sure where there is. Land Rover approved used. Winner of What Car Best Used Car Scheme 2 years running. Search Land Rover approved. Land Rover. Above and beyond.
Paul, Winston Wolfe. You're a landlord and I see you're in a pickle.
Yeah?
Your tenants can't pay the rent, and I'm here to tell you to call the smart guys at Direct Line. Their landlord insurance has rent guarantee of up to $250,000, and they pay until the issue is resolved.
That's a relief.
Now enjoy your pickle, Paul.
Landlord insurance with rent guarantee up to £250,000. Can your landlord insurance do that? Cover purchase as part of legal expenses add-on. Qualifying criteria apply. Eviction notice must have been correctly served before you can claim. Restricted claims for existing tenants in the first 90 days when product first purchased. Residential landlords only.
It's Super Weekend at Lidl with up to 50% off selected products. Get a bottle of Argentinian Torontes Mendoza, only $3.49. A bag of soft-pitted apricots, just 49p. And a pack of deluxe super granola, only 99p. Lidl, big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability. Selected stores excludes NI in Scotland.
Did you get the veg?
Yes.
Tell me you got the veg.
I got the veg.
Broccoli?
Yes, I got the veg.
Tomatoes?
Technically a fruit.
Drinks?
Yes.
Pizzas, cheeses, sauces, you get all that?
Yes.
Will it fit in the fridge?
Yes.
Well, go on then.
Samsung RS8000 is the big fridge for the big shop. Search RS8000 from Samsung. Winners of the 2018 Which Large Home Appliance Brand of the Year Award.
Tired tinsel, boring baubles, decade at B&Q.
From sparkling lights to dazzling decorations, we've got Christmas covered. Like 120 LED warm white string lights for just £7. So to get Christmas ready with everyday low prices, you can do it when you're being Hewitt.
It's Christmas dinner, and they're off. Nan's out the chair, racing for pigs in blankets. Dad makes a beeline for the spuds. Oh no, heartburn has struck. Dad's down, he's suffering. They're pinching things off his plate. Savage. Hold on, he's got Gaviscon. And yes, he's trying the turkey. He's back in the game. Don't miss out on Christmas dinner. Nothing gets to work faster than the nation's favourite heartburn and indigestion brand. Gaviscon Double Action. Based on sales data, always read the label.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
Big UKIP meeting this afternoon, and there is a motion that's been proposed by a couple of members of UKIP's NEC, a motion of no confidence in the leader, Gerard Batten. Will it pass, won't it? I don't know. I would have thought the overnight revelation that the organiser of this UKIP rally next Sunday is somebody who went to prison, was convicted 2 years ago for the armed kidnapping of somebody wouldn't necessarily help, and that's my concern. I do feel Tommy Robinson brings some of these people with him, even though he does make some valid points, just that I don't think it works in a political party, and I begin to think I just don't recognise this as being UKIP. That's how I feel. I'm going to go to Devizes and speak to Pat Bryant. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning, Nigel. For the sake of clarity, I was until September the acting communications director for the UK Independence Party.
Yep.
And I'm still a member of the communications team now. We were actually discussing a march or a rally prior to Tommy Robinson, in my opinion, hijacking this particular exercise. And I hear you saying what I have been saying for the last 2 weeks, and I am now in a situation like you are. And what I'm doing is I'm sitting on my hands and praying that the NEC do their job this afternoon, because otherwise I fear I'm out. And I suspect that's probably where you are.
Well, I suspect, given that you're on the communications team for UKIP, Pat, and you've just made this phone call, you probably will be out.
Absolutely, I'm
so, you've committed political harry-carry online here on LBC, but you've done it because you care about it, and that's how I feel about it.
I care so much about this party. Elections, I've got no end of abuse. It's proven difficulty. I'm a risk analyst. I work in government areas. It's given me problems with regard to my work, and I've kept going at it for over 10 years. And
can I ask you something, Pat?
Just a tragedy.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Would it be unfair of me, or would it be correct of me to say that Gerard Batten appears to be totally obsessed with getting Tommy Robinson into UKIP?
It appears that way. It doesn't. I've not spoken with him about it, but it doesn't seem to be influenced by anything that anybody says against him, and I'm not sure how much of the communications get through because the team are very much in the same image. Leaders build parties in their own image.
Sure.
And I'm not sure how much gets through. I've got communications with the branches all the way around. And, put it this way, I think that the majority of the people have a great deal of sympathy with what Tommy Robinson is saying and what he stands for, because I don't think there's anyone amongst a whole lot of us that actually thinks that there's equality under the law anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But really, is this the way to do it? Why are we not actually screaming from the rooftops that, somebody can be picked up off of court steps and locked up within 12 hours, but somebody accused of fiddling their election expenses takes 3.5 years to get to court?
Well, I know. Pat, like you, I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that the NEC makes the right decision this afternoon. Thank you for being brave and calling into the show. Well, that was somebody who's still part of the current UK communications team, but probably not after 5 o'clock today if Mr. Batten wins at the NEC. But there you are. UKIP is very, very split over something that didn't need to happen. If we just kept the rule that we'd had, that former EDL people, let alone the co-founder, weren't welcome as UKIP members or as part of the party, we would not have had this problem. Julian is a new caller to this show, and he lives in Hornchurch. Good morning, Julian.
Good morning, Nigel. Let me say I'm obviously one of your number one fans. I listen to you all the time. I am a member of UKIP.
Yep.
I had met you on one occasion at an Eastbourne conference.
Okay.
And on the question of Tommy Robinson, I agree with what quite a few of the actual people have said. I mean, I'm a bit ambivalent. I don't really want him to be allowed to join the party. But I would say to your listeners that if they listen to the Oxford Union address that Tommy Robinson made, it's about an hour, just over an hour long, and he answered questions afterwards. He would give his history, and it has changed a lot of people's minds. Now, I know that Tommy Robinson attracts a lot of, let's say, yobbish side of people, and that's a great concern to me. I was on the march on the 23rd of June, and there were people with megaphones shouting Tommy Robinson. Now, I had some sympathy with them because at the time he was incarcerated unnecessarily, in my view. It was the state acting.
Well, I'm not going to get. I can't get too involved in those specifics for legal reasons, Julian. But look, you're a UKIP member. And fine, you think that some of the things Tommy Robinson says are very important and need to be said. Fine. But is he going to be an asset to an electoral party, given A, his own record, and B, the people he attracts? Is he an asset to UKIP?
If you put it in those terms, personally, no, I don't think he would be an asset. But I don't mind Gerard, and Gerard's a founder member of UKIP, like yourself. And I don't think he's an extreme person.
Well, he's just then maybe he just has a horrendous judgment, Julian.
Yeah, but sometimes you do need to get the advice of people who have been at the sharp end of any situation, and Tommy Robinson certainly has been at the sharp end.
Julian, I tell you what, I've been doing this for a quarter of a century. I've had some downs, but some big ups as well with UKIP. And believe me, Julian, if it carries on its current course, there is a glass ceiling on the UKIP vote. It will never be a significant force in British politics ever again, Julian.
Well, let's hope that you're wrong.
Let's hope I'm wrong. OK, we'll leave it at that. Let's hope I'm wrong. I'm not. Andrew from Leeds says, another 5k here, Nigel. Thank you very much. Nigel, I've been on Tommy's marches before. I've seen no violence. I've always taken my girlfriend too. Any violence comes from the left. The country needs someone, and Tommy is the only person putting himself forward. Paul, Tommy Robinson has talked about Islamic issues. He's talked about all sorts of issues around, lack of freedom of speech. He's never ever spoken about Brexit. What on earth is he doing at a Brexit rally, which will probably do him good in terms of social media and all the rest of it? Will it do the Brexit cause any good? No, it will not. And I really, truly believe that. Mervyn is calling from Belfast. Hi, Mervyn.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. You have a good following here in Northern Ireland. You've been here, and I don't know anybody who has made any detrimental remarks to you. Would you consider becoming a member of the Democratic Unionist Party?
Well, that's interesting. And you said, I have to tell you, Mervyn, I was in East Belfast a couple of years ago when a Range Rover at high speed came down the road, stopped next to me, the window went down, and I was told that it would be good for my health to leave the area as quickly as possible, if I can put it in those terms. And, of course, we reported it to the police, and it was a stolen car and false number plates and all the rest of it. So, yes, I've had some fairly direct threats in Northern Ireland, but generally I've always been very welcome. I haven't considered joining the DUP, Mervyn, because I'm not from Northern Ireland, and the DUP is just a Northern Irish party, isn't it?
No, I don't agree with that, Nigel. I think the DUP, if anything, need to stretch out a little bit more. They need to be thinking about where do we go other than the 6 counties. And someone like yourself, but let me put it this way, the DUP are on very thin lines at the minute, Nigel, with RHI and a few other things, with Ian Paisley and so allegedly it's partly a Christian party. I don't believe that for one moment. OK, well, Mervyn, all I can say is this about the DUP. I do know many of them, and they're doing a good job on Brexit. They really are. Mervyn, thank you all of you. Well, look, I never ever wanted to have that conversation, really, because
UKIP has been a huge part of my life. I've given a heck of a lot to it. I've tried to build it up, make it respectable, make it an electoral force, keep the extremists out, but make the tough arguments. And I think this is an horrendous mistake that Gerard Batten is making. You let in Tommy Robinson. You let in some very, very bad people with him. I hope the NEC acts. If it doesn't, well, it may well be the end of the road for me after 25 years, which I feel sad about. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show. I'm back tomorrow at 6. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, it's Ian Payne. But up next, it's Majid Nawaz.
Thank you, Nigel. Yeah, I've been watching this with trepidation as well myself. So would you leave then after tonight?
I'm pretty damn close to it.
Right, OK. Well, coming up, Pope Francis has said that being gay is a fashion to which the clergy is susceptible, advising that gay people should not join the Catholic clergy. Is there a place for gay people in the church? Before that, thousands of new fathers are to be offered screening and treatment for mental health problems on the NHS as part of a 10-year plan for the health service to spend the $20 billion extra promised by Theresa May by 2022.